All right, here we go. Salute to NBA Nation on this Monday afternoon. Another edition of the NBA Report. CP the franchise in the building. My guy Dexter Henry of New York Post Sports. NY's got game on the other side. Season over. Game 7 over. And this one had a lot of storylines, man. We had tragedy and we had triumph with SGA J-Dub and the Oklahoma City Thunder getting the win and getting the Larry O'Brien trophy, man. 103-91 and getting crowned champions, man. So we're going to talk about that, plus the blockbuster trade of Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets. We'll talk about that as well. Lock in, man. Hit the like button. Hit the share button and subscribe to the channel. Let's go, man. Salute, man. All right, man. The phone lines are also up. You guys can call us up on the NBA Report Discord. The Discord link is right there below. Dex, how we feeling, man? Hot as hell here in New York. How you feeling, bro?
Yo, I haven't even stepped out today, but it's hot. You know, you got the AC blasting indoors. I looked at the temperature maybe an hour ago. I saw it was 95.
Yeah.
And it feels like 111.
Yeah.
Feels like 111, people. And as somebody who used to do some weather reporting, stay cool, stay hydrated. That's all I'm saying. Stay cool, stay hydrated, man.
Yeah, it's supposed to hit 110 tomorrow. So we skipped spring and went straight into a heat wave here in New York, but that's how it goes. Anyway, man, Game 7 in the books. And as I said, we had tragedy, we had triumph. What'd you think about this one, man?
Look, man, anytime you get a Game 7, it's special. I think obviously with Tyrese Haliburton going down, as soon as he went down, I knew what it was. It's tough. I was just talking to somebody earlier today. We're starting to see evidence of this. When you got anything in the calf, and you and I talked about this.
Yeah.
When he injured this in Game 5, you probably don't want to play around with this. We saw with KD towards Achilles after he injured in the Western Conference Finals, sat out a couple games and came back. Toward Achilles after the calf injury.
Yeah.
Same thing here. But here I want to be very clear. I understand. These guys work very hard to get to this level and what they do, and you never know when you're going to get back to an NBA Finals. So I completely understand why Tyrese Haliburton wanted to play, felt like he had to play. I get it. Teams might have to start looking and saying, is this the best thing? Because even Dame tore his Achilles this off postseason, and he had the blood clot in the right calf. And then he came back, and then the Achilles tear. Can't play around with these calf injuries in basketball. And I feel for Tyrese Haliburton. Somebody who's torn their Achilles playing basketball. That is not an easy injury. It is tough. But look, when you get all that said and done, I felt nervous for OKC at halftime. The Pacers are leading this.
Yeah.
Nembhard's making shots. I'm like, oh man, are they gonna still get this done? You gotta tip your hat off to the Pacers. They fought valiantly. They just didn't have enough, and the Thunder did enough. We talked about how turnovers would be key. They were 21 for the Pacers. Thunder only had 7. That's been the difference in this series. That was the difference. Credit to Thunder. SGA was great. I know he shot 8 of 27, but the Pacers had blitzed him differently in Game 6. He made the adjustments. He was great with his passes, made his teammates better, did what an MVP is supposed to do. And you got to tip your hat to the Thunder, man. Great team, balanced all year. Did they show their youth at times during this playoff run? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But they got it done when it counted, and that's all that matters. Maybe it's a different game if Haliburton played more, but we'll never know the answer to that.
Yeah, we certainly won't, man. And look, I was looking forward to this game for everybody that was involved. Yes, the Pacers situation with the Knicks and the Haliburton, and Knicks fans didn't want to see Haliburton. I wanted to see all hands on deck. Because after he got out of Game 6, he starts off this game back-to-back threes. I said, okay, Hold on 1 second. OKC is in for a long night. But you know what? I think it was a combination of the adrenaline and, I think that was a lot of it. Like the adrenaline, man, where he's hitting those shots. And my guy, shout out my guy Elite, he hit me and was like, yo, Haliburton's hot right now. And I said this exact thing. I said, OKC's mad lazy on their closeouts. They called the timeout. SGA attacks that closeout. He closes out hard, just like that. Achilles.
He had to put the ball on the floor.
As soon as he put the ball on the floor.
As soon as he put the ball on the floor, that was it.
Yeah.
They made him. That's a great point, CP. I didn't even think about it like that, and I thought about that timeout. They made him do something that he didn't really show us in Game 6 that he was comfortable doing. Right, that's closing out and then like off the dribble. He looked better as the game got on, and yeah, and I'm telling folks, look at all these Achilles injuries. And this happened to me. Like, I literally tore my Achilles the same way Haliburton did.
Yeah.
Literally the same way. Just was about to drive. Boop, that was it.
Yeah.
And so it's tough because you haven't been putting enough stress, and you got to make such a good move, planting your right foot, putting your left foot forward, and then there it goes.
There it goes.
Yeah. That's a great point by you that they closed out harder. And then that changed things for him.
That's when it absolutely changed. And, you knew it right away, man, when you saw him practically crying and then getting carted off carried off with the towel on the head, that you knew that was Achilles. But as you said, nevertheless, man, the Pacers not only hung in there, they had a 1-point lead at the half. And so going into the half, I said, you know what? Pacers are strong. They're playing very well. They're getting a lot of balance. I knew they were going to lean on Siakam, and he was fantastic throughout the entire playoffs. But I just had a feeling that the third quarter, OKC was going to start to hit their strides in the third quarter. Heading into the locker room and understanding, like, yo, listen, this Pacer team is not going quietly into the night. They got a ton of confidence. They believe in themselves. We have to raise our level of play to championship quality basketball. And what I thought was essential here in this run, that OKC ends up winning that third quarter 34-20, and I looked at a couple of different things that was very key here. Number one, the turnovers. Like we said, coming into this game, whoever's going to turn the ball over most is probably going to lose this game. 7-0 turnovers. Pacers had 0 turnovers for OKC. And what I also thought was key was that McConnell was going crazy. 12 points in that third quarter, but with SGA hitting the bench, it was crucial for J-Dub to take over that lineup and lead that lineup. He had been kind of quiet going into that quarter. Then he has the 9 points in the third. On top of that they get balanced scoring. And, yes, outside of McConnell, they did defend well, and I thought that was major in that 34-20 third quarter. Once they got through that, I said, okay, this is pretty much done.
I love that you mentioned J-Dub sort of, how I'll say this, being a little more relaxed, CP, because a lot of the Thunder players early on, they looked a little tight.
Tight.
I saw guys passing up shots they should be taking. I was like, this Thunder team looks tight. And I talked about that. The crowd had a little nervous energy at certain points, especially in that second quarter, the way the Pacers were responding. I agree. Obviously you look at a plus 14 in the third quarter is huge, but the keys you mentioned there are spot on. Seven turnovers for the Pacers. The Thunder had 7 turnovers all game.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And I do think Jalen Williams settled down in that third, especially when SGA went to the bench. That was huge for him. I think he got his confidence going in. I think for this Thunder team, when you look at that, when you could have a quarter like that where they did what they needed to do defensively, even more so than offensively, going forward with this team, there's a lot of talk about this team, how young they are. Can they be a dynasty? All this other stuff. But look, they had a lot of grow me up moments in these playoffs. And last night was another one of them. And I think the way it started with guys being tight, figuring it out in the third, locking in defensively, trusting their own process, and then gaining that confidence to it, it's going to do wonders for guys like Chet and Jalen Williams. Because look, you could tell me, you could look at the shooting numbers, and Jalen was 7-20, and SGA was 8-27. Look, these game sevens are usually ugly. They're usually tight. You never get this fluid offense. It generally isn't like that. So I expected that. And guys, everything's tight. You're playing 48 minutes for the title. So to me, it's about, do you make plays when it matters? They did in the third quarter. They did down the stretch. They got the stops they needed. And you're right, TJ McConnell, he was going off. TJ McConnell
was going crazy, bro.
Man.
Crazy.
Man, he was going at Caruso.
Yes.
At times, and it was like, okay, TJ McConnell had himself a fantastic series. That man has nothing to hang his head about.
Yeah.
The Pacers signed him to an extension earlier this year. That is looking like it is an absolute bargain. in the league. He's one of the best point guards in the league, and he will get an extended look unless they upgrade in some way next year. So yeah, man, that I thought the Thunder really grew up in that third quarter, and they had to do it to win the championship.
Yeah, no question about it, man. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, we got to talk about it. That's the MVP, the Western Conference Finals MVP, and also the NBA Finals MVP. And this was a graphic here from. I'm going to show this graphic, then play this Shai soundbite. Scoring champion, MVP, and NBA Finals MVP in the same season. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, MJ, Shaquille O'Neal, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And here was Shai after the game on being in rare air. Here was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Here we go.
Tim?
It's a real short list of guys who've won MVP and Finals MVP in the same season. Yeah, the scoring title in there, that list gets even shorter. Now that you guys have crossed the finish line, are you able to wrap your head around that historic company that you've joined?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that I'm part of that group. It's hard to even fathom that I'm that type of basketball player sometimes. As a kid, you dream, and every kid dreams, but you don't ever really know if it's going to come true. And I'm just glad and happy that my dreams have been able to come true, and that's a thank you to everyone that's been in my corner that's helped me get here. I wouldn't be able to done without them. They know exactly who they are. So, yeah, it's a win for the family.
All right, man. That was the MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. What do you think, man? This was just a tremendous year for him, and to cap it all off with a championship, all the accolades, it was well-deserved for Shai, man. I thought he was outstanding. He's been a terrific player, man.
Yeah, he was outstanding. Like, anybody who was questioning whether or not he's a superstar, I never understood that. We've seen what this guy's done the last 2 years. He was second MVP voting last year. He wins the MVP this year. He is unquestionably now a top 3 player in the league. I think some people will have him 2 after Jokic. He's in rarefied air with that accomplishment right there. I mean, that's elite. Anytime you get into elite company, you do something at his age, and I think leading a team as young as this team is the most impressive thing. I was saying this to somebody last night. Somebody else talked to me who's from Canada. I was talking about last night, and she said to me, she was like, SGA is the greatest Canadian player ever. And I thought about it. I was like, oh, a lot of people are going to say Steve Nash, but I think because he's in this rarefied air, he's won a title. He's a better defensive player than Steve Nash. I think that point is correct. I think he is the greatest Canadian player ever. And he's leading this great generation of Canadian basketball players that we're seeing in the league right now. But to do this, and then, I think the other part of his CP is, do we see him slowing down? Do we see him not getting better? He's a good two-way player. He showed he can make other players better last night, even when his shot wasn't falling. 8 for 27. He still had what? How many assists did he have? He had a double-double. 12, 13? I'm trying to remember how many assists he had. He had 12 assists. So, yeah, when you're able to do that at that level in the way he's able to do it, impact the game on both ends, I mean, just tremendous way to cap his season. The sky's the limit for this guy because of, I think, his defensive ability and the pieces around him. And some people are going to say this, and I think some people will use this to bring him down a peg and say, well, he had a well-constructed team built around him. Yeah. I mean, that's what you want as a player.
Yeah.
And you have to then elevate. You still have to execute.
You still got to elevate, bro. Right.
And he did that. I think it's one of the things that I'm impressed. I'm not around that team, but I talked to my guy, Josue Pavon, who covers them for Clutch Points. And, we talked about the leadership of SGA with me early this year and how impressive he's been. And I just think when you look at how, I'll harp back on this again, we look at how young this OKC team is, CP, and he is the face and leader of it in his mid-20s. And the way he's carried everything, bouncing back after a Game 6 letdown, you got to be impressed. And I just wonder what this can do for this young man's career going forward. OKC is going to be a problem. SGA is a problem, and he's a bona fide superstar. Now, will he get the hype and accolades of some others may? I think time will tell, and winning will take care of all that. But, SGA's dope, man. He's dope. There's no denying that.
Absolutely, man. And I had to play this soundbite because this soundbite has been floating around the internet. This is from some Pacer fan. And you know what? This is a perfect segue to introduce our audience on the NBA report side to Worst Take. And in Worst Take, we go around the NBA media landscape reacting to some controversial sound bites, and we rate the take in the chat. 1 being trash, 5 being facts. So here is an Indiana Pacer. Looks like a content creator. I don't know this guy's name. Apologies on that. But here is his take on SGA. I'm going to play it. I'll react to it, and you let me know what you think. Here we go.
I have zero respect for SGA. Zero. None. I hate watching.
I think that's the problem with the
worst.
Thunder.
I think he's the worst MVP of my lifetime. I think it's a disgusting watch.
Wow.
I think the Thunder are a blight on basketball. I think the way they play is disgusting. I think that there's this idea that they are a team, a bunch of young guys that come together and play great team defense. They don't. They hack the shit out of guys. SGA has zero bag whatsoever. He pushes off on literally every basket he scores. And then the refs just, for some reason, don't call it. And then the commentators do their best to carry water for him, and they're like, woo, creating separation right there. We all saw it. He put his shoulder down. He pushed off. That's the only move he has. He either gets fouled and goes to the free throw line, or he hits the mid-range jumper that then Doris Burke and Richard Jefferson say, well, look at how good he is at getting to his spot and creating separation.
I got to.
And then they slow-mo it, and we just see the same fucking play over and over. We all know how he does it, and they for some reason don't call it. It drives me up a goddamn wall.
All right, so that young man crashed out. He crashed out heavy, man. I think he was a dejected Pacer fan. He crashed out. And look, man, this is the age of the internet where everybody wants to be loud and wrong, because that is exactly what this guy was in that crybaby rant. He looks like one of those guys that watches games with diapers on. You know, we have a lot of those guys around the NBA right now. I don't understand the SGA hate. I feel like it's forced. I feel like it's manufactured. Here is a guy that has only leveled up every single year since his rookie year. Even last year, when you could have made the argument that he could have won the MVP, he comes back this year with even better numbers. He averaged 32 points per game. Like, what are we talking about? 32 points per game, 6 assists. His three-point percentage is going up. His effective field goal percentage is going up. 2-point percentage is going up. Yeah, he gets to the free throw line because he's smart at drawing contact. But to say that the guy has no bag is false. He not only gets to his mid-range spots with ease. We're in this era where everybody's complaining about too much threes. So now you have a young mid-range assassin who is taking it back to the old school, if you will, and is excellent at it. As I said, scoring champion, MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP, Finals MVP. We're now looking to figure out who's going to be the face of the league. Is it going to be one guy or a collection? You have a guy like this who stays out of the way and is leveling up his team. What are we talking about here?
CP, that was a crash out for the ages right there. You're right. Everybody's got to be loud. Everybody's got to be wrong and strong. And there's no accountability, right? Because you're saying all this. There's no facts. This is all just what he feels. And it's feeling the moment. There's no facts there. There's nothing about what you said about how he's leveled up, how he's become more efficient as a player. And who cares about a bag? Because here's the goal of basketball is to win possessions. You want players that can elevate your team, right? And contribute to winning basketball. So I would ask that guy, does SGA contribute to winning basketball? I don't understand how you could look at his career trajectory and say that he doesn't. I don't understand how you could watch last night and say that he doesn't. For folks who think he's a foul grifter, which is what this young man was alluding to, okay. But does he contribute? Is getting to the line not part of winning basketball? Right. Whether you like how it looks or not. I say this nicely. Nobody cares about your feelings on this because your team lost. And if your team lost and you don't have anybody around you to tell you, hey man, maybe you shouldn't crash out like this on your platform, whatever that might be. Yeah, what do you say? What's your scale on worst take again? Was it 1 and 5?
1 being trash, up to 5 being facts. Is it tomatoes? Is it fire emojis? What do you think?
This is like a -5. You got to give this a -5 here because I get it. Look, and no disrespect to the young man. He's in his feelings. He sounds like he's a Pacer content creator. His team lost. But CP, I've known you for a bit. We do content. We do stuff around the Knicks. I've never seen you crash out over a Knicks loss. I've never seen it. I've seen you try to be as objective as possible. We know you're a fan. And, you talk about what you see. But you can't get in your feelings. And when you take an L, you got to tip your hat to the other team. And that's it. To say he's the most, what do you say? I don't know if you say overrated or undeserving.
He's the worst MVP he's ever seen or something, some garbage like that.
He was the best player on the best team in the league statistically all season long. Now this team went and proved it in the playoffs because they won the championship. They had 68 wins. They had the best offensive rating. They had the best plus minus in terms of defense. So the metrics were there for them. He was the best player and scoring champ on this team, and he's the worst MVP you've ever seen? Okay.
It's forced.
I don't have much more to add than that. Okay. All right.
It's forced. I don't know what more you want to see from this league. It is so ridiculously forced. The kid is 26 years old, has leveled up every single year. And I'm sorry, bro. Listen, he's going up against his countryman in Nebhard. He's going up against Neesmith. If the defender is allowed to be physical in trying to bump you off your spots, if I'm a referee, you have to allow for contact by the offensive player to bump him off. Is it a full stiff arm? No. Is he creating separation? Every good player in the NBA uses their physicality to create separation. Every single one. If the defender's going to be physical, then the offensive player has to be able to be physical, or else you're never going to have any type of offense in the NBA. It's ridiculous, bro.
Yeah, and I think what SGA is actually elite at, I'm trying to think of another player. All the elite players are great at this. Getting to your spot. That is the thing. Getting to your spot. Kawhi Leonard can, still knows how to get to his spot as a mid-range guy. I'm thinking about guys in mid-range. Jalen Brunson is like this too. Kevin Durant can cook in the mid-range and get to a spot. Luka Doncic can do this as well too. All the great guys, it's not about being hyper athletic or being your bag. The league is not about that anymore. And for people who are still on that, you're not watching the league, or you haven't understood the evolution of what's going on in basketball. Getting to your spot, being highly efficient, and being a good two-way player, that's good to me. I'll take SGA on my team any day.
Yeah.
He's asked. Look, I know this dude will probably lie, and he'll do it for the clicks. Yes, I'm calling him a liar. If you ask him if he would swap Haliburton for SGA, he's lying if he tells you he wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
Straight lying.
Exactly.
Straight line.
Yeah.
You ain't got to lie, bro. You ain't got to lie.
No question about it. Salute to everybody in the chat once again. Hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel. Shout out to Mario Pataya in the chat, the Mario Montague, D Cannon 93, my 2 cents. How you feeling? Shout out to the one ace, Vincent, Creative Lou. Salute to you guys. Free Sauce in the building. Fabian Aramaris, salute to you. Salute to TM as well, man. Hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel. We are recapping the NBA Finals in which the Oklahoma City Thunder ran away with it in Game 7. Here was an interesting soundbite from J-Dub, Dex. Jalen Williams, great, sensational 3 years with this Oklahoma City Thunder group. Came onto the scene really well as a rookie. 20 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists in this one tonight. 2 steals as well. Here was J-Dub in terms of the trials and tribulations of this run and what he'll remember. Here we go. This is courtesy of Scott Van Pelt's show and ESPN. Here we go.
What has been most satisfying that you gave this team along the way, that when you look back on it, when you're old and washed like me, you're like, I did that. Is there one thing that you'll take great satisfaction in from this run?
Nothing's more precious than time, I think. And I think when...
That's so true, man.
Just giving the team my time and them giving me theirs. We've had team dinners after we've lost. We've had plane don't take off till 4 a.m. and we sit on the runway. Like all those like cool times where we were present with each other and like had fun, played Blu-ray on the plane, Uno, listen to music together. Like all that stuff, I'm happy that I did that with this team. I think that's why we were so good. Like all the off the court stuff is stuff that I'll remember, and when it comes to like time, it's like, yeah, just spending extra hours with each other. Like me and Chet used to like go in the hotel and like watch film on like our pick and rolls when he was coming back. Like that's the stuff I remember from this run more than like I can't even remember what happened our last series. So it's like those are always moments that stick out to me.
Well, you shared your time with me throughout this, and for that I'm grateful. I enjoyed a chance to get to know you a little bit, and I look forward to doing it again somewhere down the road.
Yes, sir. I appreciate
it. Thank you.
All right, that was J-Dub, man, and hey, very, very mature for his age, man.
Yes.
Talking about being appreciative of time. Very, very mature and wise beyond his years. And you kind of, as a player, you kind of saw that, man, because as a rookie, it was just like, yo, I mean, when I saw him at Santa Clara and I was doing my draft shows, I'm like, how is this guy not like a top 5 pick? It didn't really make sense, but luckily enough, they were able to draft him and Chet in that 2020 draft. And that was, you know, part of the movement by Sam Presti. You know, we were always like, man, all these guys are doing is accumulating draft picks. And here you go. They get 2 out of the 3 cornerstones in that draft. And both of those guys were sensational in this series. Chet, phenomenal defense. J-Dub, offensively leading the way when SGA's on the bench. They got their cornerstones, man. They have their big 3.
Oh, yeah, they do. And I think, you know, a lot of times we look at talent. And I know you saw the talent with him and his ability to score at Santa Clara. But, you know, I think something that fans sometimes don't think about in the process of drafting. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day who does some scouting. And it's that look, a lot of that, you can look good on paper. But when these teams sit down with these guys and they talk to them and you listen to what J-Dub said there, the emotional maturity at his age to understand, because those are some very wise words. Time is the most precious commodity we have and how we spend it. And being present in that moment after just winning a championship to understand that about the time, and that you don't know what happens. You don't know if you ever get back there again. But that time that he had with his team, and he sounds, when he talked about working with Chet when he's coming back from his injury, loving the process of it. You know, I say this all the time. It doesn't matter what you do in life. If you don't love the process of what it is that you're doing, you're never really truly going to enjoy it or truly feel fulfilled by it. You have to do it. So to hear that young man say that, and, you know, if he's saying that to Scott Van Pelt, you know, I'm sure he had some of these same interviews when he sat down with Sam Presti and these guys and they talked to him and they had to say, hey, this is a guy that could really fit in our culture. And we've seen him. I think what I'm happy for him is how he's grown up through this playoff run, because all the questions were last year after they lost to Dallas. Is he truly a number 2 option? How's he going to handle it? He had some down games, but he always bounced back here in the playoffs. Always bounced back, and that's what you want to see. It's not going to be perfect all the time. It's about how you get up. And, yeah, their core is good. And Chet, too. You got to give Chet credit, too, like you said.
Yes.
He did not shoot the ball well in this series. 6 of 8 in Game 7. That was huge, but his defense stayed steady. And that's what you got to give him credit for. He knows he has to get stronger. He's going to get in that gym. But Chet, solid player. He grew up a lot in this series, too. And, you know, I was glad to see him shoot the ball better in Game 7. I think that'll do wonders for his confidence going forward as well, too.
Yeah, no question about it. And, you know, speaking of Chet and speaking of J-Dub, I'll never forget the conversation I had at Summer League with Eddie Johnson, former Phoenix Sun, and currently host on NBA radio with Justin Termini. And me and Eddie, we sitting there and we're watching Chet in his first Summer League game, and we just talking about the Thunder. Like, yeah, man, you know, they're acquiring all these young players. And Eddie was like to me, he was like, yeah, man, when is this guy Presti gonna finally turn him into a contender? You know, like, when are they finally gonna get this thing figured out? You could have all the young talent in the world, but if it's not moving into championships or championship contendership, you know, it's a fruitless exercise. And so they go from that year they draft Chet, they go they are 22 and 50, then they're 24th and 58, so that's 14th in the NBA in the West. Then they go 40 and 22, finish 10th in the West, and we're like, oh, okay, all right, they missed the playoffs, but they got something going. Then last year they finished first in the West, 57 and 25, and now they're NBA champions, man. 68 and 14, the best team all year, and they did it, man. And they still have so much more. The war chest is filled to the brim, bro. I think they got like 3 draft picks this year. They got 4 first-round picks next year. It's insane what their war chest is looking like right now.
It's crazy, and they can't keep them all. I think they already have 13 players signed under contract for next year. And I think one of those includes the draft pick they had this year. I forget
Nikola Topic, number 12,
who I was very high on and looks like a fantastic player coming out of Serbia. I mean, he's really good with the ball. They got flexibility. There's a world in which they could or they couldn't trade somebody like a Lou Dort, because they could say that it's crazy because Lou Dort's so important in what they do, but they could get off his salary. They could open up some more flexibility. There's so many things Presti can do. I don't know if he needs to do it this offseason. I think it's very likely you see the same team come back for the most part. But yeah, they're going to add Topic. And here's the thing. If Topic can play, Mark Dagnall's going to play him. Yeah. And that's another ball handler, creator who's got size, who's 6'8", can push the balls, a very good passer. For people who wasn't up on Topic, very good passer. International scouts loved his game. So, yeah, man, it shows you patience. If you're patient with the team, you're patient with the process. I'm bringing up the word process again, and not in the Sixers sense of the word, but if you're patient with the process, man, and you trust it, things could pay off. And they're well primed in this current NBA, CP, with the way the second aprons are, to have the flexibility for their team and keep things going. They're well primed to contend. Now, the health is a factor. You know, you got to get a little lucky with certain things, but they got the talent there, and they got guys trending up, not trending down in terms of their talent.
Well, for me, I think the key for every championship team, obviously Shai emerging as an MVP caliber player and ultimately winning the MVP was major, right? Because they had their superstar. J-Dub making his first All-Star team. Great in terms of the overall talent. But to me, they needed those vets to sew up the little things, to carry out the coach's message. And when they got Caruso, and first of all, I knew they were going straight for iHeart in the offseason. Mm-hmm. I remember Knicks fans were tight at me. They're like, yo, don't put that out there. When their season wrapped up last year, I said, OKC, they're getting bodied up too much. They're not winning on the rebounds, and they're not tough enough. They're going to go get iHeart. That was their first free agency priority last offseason. Then they swing the trade for Caruso. Those two guys, the glue guys, the scrappiness of their character and their caliber, that to me was like, okay, they're going to make the move now. Now they're ready to be champions.
I love that you brought that up, too, because I think so much will get put on the drafting and not enough. You know, it's not this. Was iHeart a sexy move? Nah. Is Alex Caruso a sexy move?
No.
But they're players that move the needle for you in terms of winning the championship. They're winning players. They contribute to winning. You know this as a Knicks fan, what you saw from iHeart. Caruso, he's been now two rings. He's been part of the Lakers championship team most recently, now part of this Oklahoma City Thunder team. They're guys that help you win possessions, and that's what you want. And sometimes for the fans out there, no matter who you root for watching the show, it's not always getting the big name or getting the sexy move. Sometimes it's when you're on the road to the championship and you got some names in there, it's like, okay, how do we plug these holes? How do we fill these needs with players that can come in, buy in, fit in, be part of our culture, at leadership? You're right. You get a guy like iHeart, you don't got to worry about him. He's not asking for touches. He just wants to make the team better. He's going to do some of the dirty work. He's a good passer. He's a good rebounder. Caruso is going to do all the dirty work. He's going to get up in your grill. He can hit some shots. He's tough. You're right. Those two signings, one is a trade, one's a signing, excuse me. Those two moves were as impactful as any move in the NBA this past offseason. Probably, I mean, when you look at it, they won the championship. Probably the most impactful because they addressed two of the needs, that the Thunder had. They had to get tougher on the boards, and they also wanted a little bit more on perimeter defense with some shooting, which they weren't getting with Josh Giddey.
Yeah.
So they upgraded in those two areas, and you might say, oh, those guys are not – look, to that Pacers fan, iHeart ain't getting in his bag. Caruso ain't getting in his bag. But you know what they do? They make winning plays. That's what matters,
That's
man.
it. That's it. I remember I had fans talking about, iHeart, he's not going to fit in with the Thunder system. I said, nonsense. Number one, he's a basketball player. He can fit in anywhere. And number two, Daniel, as a coach, can play various styles. You had the Twin Tower sets. You had Che at the 5. You had iHeart. Like, how can you not utilize a passing big who's as smart as iHeart is, who can grab rebounds, who has a teardrop floater, who's a scrapper. Like, all of that to me was nonsense. So, congratulations to him. It was tough to see him leave the Knicks, but obviously from a business standpoint, he went from a journeyman. Tibbs coached him up into a very good starting caliber center in this league. And you got to remember, they didn't have Chet for a good portion of that regular season. And so for a good portion of that regular season, iHeart was their starting center. And with him at the 5, they had the number 1 defense in the NBA. So, that just
the numbers are the numbers, man. The impact that they had is it just tells you, and it shows you a lot with team building. It's nice if you can build through the draft, but even Sam Presti was sitting here with us. He would say the same thing. You got to hit and make the right trades and the right free agent signings to guys that fit in your culture. But they identified their needs. They went in and did that. They empowered their coach. I think that needs to be given a lot of credit. Mark Daigneault has been doing this for 5 years. You went through the timeline, and they stuck with him. They said, hey, this is our guy. We believe in him. He's going to take us from here to here. And he's done it because he was empowered to do so, to develop and get those guys, where they need to be, and they understand what their culture is. So now any moves that they make going forward is going to be about who fits in his culture and how does it work for us.
Yeah, no question about it. And listen, man, I really enjoyed this series. I thought it was fantastic. We both had Pacers in 6. But, my takeaways from this series, I mean, you saw the emotion, man, when Pacers walking off that court. Like I said, a team that beat my Knicks, who I was not ready to shed no tears over. I felt that, man. McConnell going into the tunnels, mom's consoling him, Obi crying off the court, Neesmith crying on the court. Like, you saw how much they put into it. Their compete level, to me, was like unlike any other team I'd seen in the NBA in terms of their resilience, their mental toughness, and their chemistry was just off the charts. Even to see that even when Haliburton goes down, they did not skip a beat until ultimately Oklahoma's deeper team, star power, overtook them. But, man, those Pacers were super impressive. Great season by them. And OKC, same way, man. Both teams, you saw the chemistry on the court was incredible. And I thought that's why we had a great finals. This was a good matchup.
I agree. I think it's going to be hard, CP, to not look back at this finals. You're going to always think about who won. But it'll be hard to not think about the Pacers, man. It's going to be hard because I think you're going to remember the grittiness, the way they fought back in games. Even if you're a Knicks fan watching this and it hurts, I understand it. Nobody wants to root for the Pacers if you root for the orange and blue. I get it. But you're right. From a human element, when we watch sports, the beauty of sports is seeing the elation of people win and the work they put into it. And then sometimes there's also something to seeing how bad people want it when they lose, right? It's the thing we love about sports. It's why we're in this, why we do this. We talk about it. And I think it is important to talk about it on that level. When you see TJ McConnell, who competed as behind off.
Insane.
When you see Neesmith, Nembhard, guys there on the stage, when you're that close, imagine people being that close to something you work your whole life for. You dreamed about to being in Game 7 of the finals. And, it's a 12-point difference between you losing, your star goes down. Those guys left it all on the floor. They have nothing to hang their heads about. And I think this series, and I've been saying this throughout conversations is that it's going to make people think a lot about the future of the NBA. This is a very important series and crossroads in the NBA and how teams are built and how you have to play through the playoffs, how you're going to win through the playoffs. I think it's part, not to make this a Knicks thing, but it's part of the reason Knicks made the change, a head coach. It's a huge part of it.
Yes.
You cannot win playing 7-8 deep. That's not the game. The league is too talented. The league is too deep. The best teams are doing that. And you got to find easy and efficient ways to score. And if you're watching the NBA, you love the NBA and you love this series because it was fantastic basketball. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Fantastic basketball. This is a good turning point for the league, which has a lot of parity, and some people feel different ways about that. I happen to like the parity. I think it's dope. Now, some people are going to get fooled. Some people are going to think things are a little more wide open than it should be for them next year. And for some people, it will be open, especially in the East. But, yeah, man, this was a fantastic finals, and I'm glad it went 7. I think some people think small market Thunder or small market Pacers being good for the next 3 to 5 years is bad for the league. I completely disagree. Completely disagree. Good basketball is always good for the league. And if you got good basketball and you have superstars like SGA, except for your boy out in Indiana who's hating, you know what I'm saying? It's good for the league. It'll be fine.
7 different champions the last 7 years. You had the 2019 Kawhi Leonard blockbuster trade, which put the Raptors in the championship stratosphere. LeBron and KD, the Lakers in the bubble 2020. Then you had Giannis, you had Middleton and Drew Holiday. Those big trades getting the Bucks the championship in 2021. The Nuggets, Jokic and Murray, Michael Porter Jr. 2022. Golden State beat the Celtics. And to me, that was the last good finals to me. Golden State and Curry and them, their last championship of that dynasty. And then you had the Nuggets, last year the Celtics, and this year the Oklahoma City Thunder. Is the parity great for the game? I like it, personally. I like it. Because
I like it too.
Yeah. Because number one, it gives teams a legitimate shot. And hell, my team, the New York Knicks, has a great chance of getting to this stage. You could have argued they should have gotten there this year. Next year, as you said, the East is wide open. It's going to be a Knicks, Cavaliers, Pacers race at this point. Some people want to put Orlando up there. We'll see. But, hey, if all goes well, my team's got a shot. That's all you want to see in this thing. Look, you can make the case for the dynasties. Some people like when the dynasties first form, and then you want to root against them in the end to see who's going to knock them off. Like, that used to be me, like, watching, like, the Lakers, you know what I mean? Like, when Shaq and Kobe first got their first sort of like, all right, nice, man. Kobe's a great player, and shout out to Shaq. But by the end, I'm like, man, who's going to beat this team? I'm tired of watching the Lakers,
Right.
So people get that way with the Yankees when they were winning. So I think there's a case to be made for the dynasties. But also, I do like this parity era because – hey, with prudent team building, you have a shot here.
I think what I like about it, I don't love everything with the new CBA and the aprons. I don't love everything about that. Like I'm not a big fan of the second apron because I just think it's a little too punitive in terms of team building. But what I do like, and this is where it goes to the parity, this is going to expose good front offices and bad front offices.
Yes.
And I kind of like that because front offices sometimes can skate by on making terrible mistakes in the draft, terrible trades, and then just getting out of it. And it's like, if you make a mistake, you're going to get penalized for it. If you make good moves, good draft picks, shrewd, you keep your books right, you're going to get rewarded for it. And now keeping the flexibility is the hard part. That's the hard thing. But you make a dumb move, it's going to hurt. And I know we're going to get to this. The Suns are a perfect example of that. In this cap situation that we are right now. They're in cap hell, and they're trying to get out of it, and they don't have leverage to do so because everybody knows your situation is bad. Everybody knows you're desperate. And so that's the thing I kind of like. Drafting is going to become more important more than ever, particularly in late first round, second round, and I like that. So we're going to see who's really good at drafting. Drafting is not an exact science. I say it all the time. It's not. But we're going to see who's good. And we're going to see who's not at finding those diamonds in the rough. Who's good at finding a guy that could come in, a 4-year player in college, could come in and contribute. A guy overseas that might be undervalued that could come in and contribute. Yeah. We're going to find out, and you're going to see it. The good organizations, they're going to consistently do it. The bad organizations, they're going to also consistently do what they do because you have to adapt. If you're trying to work the way you did in the last CBA, nah, man, that ain't going to work here. Yeah. That's not going to work. So, I like it for the league. Do I also like having a team to hate against? Yeah, it's cool too. As long as they're not beating your team. Exactly. That's the part where it's not fun. But I think the league is going to be fine because I just think it's too deep. There's too many stars. We'll see if they ever expand to Vegas and Seattle. But, yeah, I think it's fine. I like it.
CP the Franchise, Dexter Henry in the building. Salute to everybody in the chat once again. Hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel. If you guys are new in the chat, leave us a hashtag new. We will shout you guys out. Just type in hashtag new in the chat. We'll shout you guys out. Shout out to King Katona 14 joins us in the building. He says the East is going to be Knicks, Cavs, Magic, and Pistons. Maybe the Sixers return to the mix. Hey, the Sixers are going to be up there in the draft. We'll see if Paul George and Embiid can get their act together. You know, Maxi's going to be a blur as he usually is. He'll be at motivated to make the All-Star team as well after he got snubbed last year. He says Celtics and Pacers can pull off first-round upsets. Yeah, definitely agree on that. Speaking of the Pacers, Dex, as we opened the show, we talked about Haliburton goes down with the Achilles tear, and it was confirmed today that it is, in fact, an Achilles tear. And, you know, we talked about this after Game 4 when he went down with the calf, and it was just like – or what? No, Game 5, rather, when he went down with the calf injury, and it was just like, he's taking a risk. He's taking a risk. But, you know, look, that's what comes with the pressures of winning, especially you're at the championship level. We saw this with Grant Hill when he completely shredded his ankles up, and that was like a first-round matchup, a second-round matchup with the Pistons. You know, this is the NBA Finals. He took a risk, and, you know, it all went south for him. Here was ESPN's Jay Williams on Twitter. He says, 8 torn Achilles this season. Haliburton is the latest. We also saw Tatum. We saw Dame tear their Achilles all in the same postseason. He says the NBA is playing at its fastest pace since the early 70s, 108.9 possessions per game. Jay Williams says we're chasing tempo, highlights, and algorithms, but at what cost? The product is faster, but the bodies are breaking, and no one is pumping the brakes. To that, you say what?
I think it's fair to look at the pace, right? And it's funny, you and I have never talked about this, but I also am a big proponent. The NBA plays. I think the NBA plays too many games. I've said this. I've been on this hill. There's two parts to it. You can't just. Jay Will is not wrong about his point with the pace, and that is a factor because now you have larger, stronger, more athletic guys than ever before playing at a faster pace. But let's take that back a little bit, CP. And you got to go back a couple levels. You got to look at things on a high school level. And as somebody who started their career covering a lot of high school basketball, AAU basketball, a lot of these kids play a lot of games. And when I've talked to people who work as, you know, physical therapists, athletic trainers, around with young people, rehab medicine, they say all the time, like, kids should not be playing that many hours of specialized sports. They shouldn't be playing more than 17 hours in one sport that they specialize in a week, because it increases the amount of injury on the body. So when you have that, I've heard this from multiple doctors, when you have that happening and young men and women are playing high levels of basketball at a faster pace, to Jay Will's point, from the time they're young, as their bodies are changing and developing, that's going to have an impact. Then you get to college, you're probably playing about a 30, 32 game season, but there you're playing like twice a week, which generally that's about ideal for what you should be playing in professional sports. But when you get to the NBA, sometimes you're playing 3-4 games a week. That's a lot of wear and tear on the bodies, right? And so, look, I understand people in the comments are probably going to be like, Dex, it's never going to happen. They're not going to reduce the season. And we know why, because we live in America, capitalism, the whole nine. They're not going to do that. But it shows you in capitalism, there is not a care for the player. If we truly cared about the players and the best product on the court, the season be reduced, I think, to about 60 to 66 games. You spread the games out. You have a couple of games a week. I think it would also be better for the fans from a TV product.
Yeah.
You know when the games are on. You know when you're locking in. And that's cool. There's too many games. I know it'll never happen, but Jay Will isn't wrong in that pace is part of the problem. But I think it goes deeper than that. Kids are playing too many games too young. Way too many games too young. And they're playing too many. So think about a guy like, Haliburton's how old? Haliburton's 26, 27?
I would have to say about that.
Yeah, torn Achilles. How much mileage has he had on his body? Throughout. Tatum is
25.
another guy. And Tatum has played in a lot of deep postseason runs. He's got a lot of postseason miles on his body. So, and again, we don't it's not just when they get to the NBA. We got to look at what's happening before youth basketball. Baxter Holmes, the great investigative reporter for ESPN, did a fantastic article on this about 2 years ago, in which he highlighted a lot of the points that I've been making on this. And he talked to some similar people, and he had really good data on this. They play too many games. I know some people don't like load management. Some people will say, well, back in the 80s, they played this and they played through. Yeah, but then kids were not playing as much AAU basketball. That's the point I'm making. You got to look at this before the NBA. Youth sports is such a moneymaker. And kids are playing more basketball than ever before. And so I think it's something we got to look at. I don't fault these players for playing in these game 7s, game 6s they can in playoffs because they don't know when they get back. They work hard to get here, but it's a deeper conversation, CP.
It's deep,
but
it's layered. It's layered.
It's layered.
Yeah.
It's very layered, right? It's not just one thing.
Yeah.
I guess that's my point.
No, that was those are great insights by you because I really don't have a clue, man. I don't know what to pin it on because D Cannon in the chat, just echoing your sentiments, he was gonna say it's the money. They're getting paid a lot of money now too, Dex. You know what I'm saying? To show up to play, we put the load management in there, and the league is countered by saying, all right, well, 65 games or you're not getting no awards. So now it's like, hey, you want that MVP, you want that All-NBA, which is going to come with more bonuses, you better show up here 65 games because we just sold the league for billions of dollars to be on NBC, Amazon, ABC, ESPN every single night of the week. So there's so many competing forces here which answer to the almighty dollar. And it's just, as you said, because, listen, I was one of those guys, we're products of the 90s, and I was one of those guys that scoffed at it like, Jordan and them, they was playing, they was beating each other up, all of that. But I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to see it. And as you say, these guys are playing earlier at the AAU level, and they playing all day on a Saturday, 5-6 games, whatever the case may be. And when you're good, you're going all the way up through the ranks. You know the seasons are not going to be shortened because they've sold it as such. So the only thing you can do is adhere to invest as teams, invest in your sports science, your sports medicine. Hey, Knicks had a very healthy year. Knock on wood, they had a very healthy year this year. Is it Casey Smith, the guy from Dallas? Was he the miracle worker there? Invest in that. There's no salary cap on operations and front office, so invest there. Hope that you have the best staff to keep you guys healthy. And look, in the Haliburton case, he was screwed. If he doesn't play, he's marked as a wimp, and he goes out there to play.
See that part though, CP, we got to change that, man. We got to
But it's the finals, though, bro. It's the finals.
Here's the thing. Let's say he didn't play.
Yeah.
I personally don't think we have to say he's a wimp if he wants to protect his health or the team wants to protect him. If it's team I'm rooting for, do I want to see him play? Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm never going to be against somebody protecting their body. I think that's crazy. But here's the other thing. As if any of us who've played sports, I also understand him wanting to play. I'm not saying what's right or what's wrong here. The point that I forget who mentioned in the chat that I think was really good. The person who said it's about the dollars. And you were kind of alluding to that. You're right. It all comes back to the money. No matter how you cut and slice it, whether we're talking about youth sports, whether we're talking about the NBA, it all comes back to the money. And you're 100% right, CP. The league. And when they put the 65-game rule, and I'm uncomfortable sometimes with some of these things being tied to players, the incentives being tied to the money they can make because it's so fickle and guys can lose out on so much money. And I understand for us, we're like, that's a lot of money, but you only have a short period of time to do this. Now, that's also part of the reason Tyrese Haliburton plays. And that's part of my point here, too. I get it. It's a short period of time to do this. You're right. He will get crucified if he didn't play. Do I think that makes him a wimp? No. I understand why people want to see him play, right? And I just feel like somebody's going to do this at some point. Somebody's going to be in a situation. We might be talking about this down the road where they're in a situation like Tyrese Haliburton and the player is going to make the decision and say, no, I'm not going to play.
Yeah.
And it's going to be shocking at first for a lot of people.
That's right.
But that player is probably not going to be wrong. I'm talking about particularly with a calf. I want to be very clear.
Yeah, because the risk was there. The risk was there. That
he knew the risk.
It.
He said that he was going to look. I'm paraquoting Tyrese Haliburton. But he said, I know this is risky. I'm looking at all information. I'm going to trust my medical team. And I don't think anyone is necessarily, in terms of the Pacers or Tyrese Haliburton, is at fault. Because, as I said, I think the symptoms of this are way beyond the Pacers and Tyrese Haliburton, right? This is something I always, and I talked to John Starks about this earlier this year. This is something I always say. Players want to play. When people talk about load management and say, oh, these players today don't want to play. No. I'm telling you guys, players want to play. A lot of times, and it's what you alluded to, CP, a lot of times these teams because they're thinking about the long game. They're thinking about having their guys healthy for the postseason. They're the ones who are like, yo, hold back on this game. Players want to play. Trust me, man. Trust me on this. Talk to players around the league. They want to play, but a lot of organizations are trying to be smarter with, like you said now. And that's going to be a huge part of, we talked about the drafting, but the part you mentioned is so right. Teams are going to invest in their training. The more information they have about how players should recover, because recovery is so much, how many minutes they should be playing, what spurt in terms of minutes you should be playing them in. What are you eating, right? What do you do? How often are you getting treatment, even if you don't have injuries? Because we know, massaging your soft tissues matters in terms of your elasticity and being able to bounce back and stuff like that. So it's a deep problem, but we all understand we are in the United States of America, where the dollar is almighty, and these leagues make so much money. They are selling to all these TV partners for so much money, and they want players on the court. Let's keep it a buck. The NBA doesn't give a damn about these players' health. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Tyrese Haliburton went down, and the show is going to keep moving. We're going to be talking about the draft. We're going to be talking about the offseason. We're talking about next year. The show goes on.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that's in the best interest of the players and the product in the league. I'm somebody who'll say that, but I also understand the society we live in.
100%. And so, Jay Williams says the pace. There's the AAU prospect. Some people are saying the sneakers are too low top. Hey, maybe it's a combination of everything. But very interesting. Going to be very interesting to see how the Pacers approach this offseason. They will have the mid-level exception, which is worth like $14 million. You have to assume he's going to be done for the entire year. Does that mean they go out and go get a Schroeder? Do they go get a Beasley? We'll see. It's going to be very interesting offseason for do they make a big trade? We'll have to see.
Could do that.
Because they see the East as being wide open, and they should rightfully so see themselves as legitimate contenders here. Hey, going to be very interesting to see which direction that Indiana goes in. But speaking of trades, Dex, the last segment of today's show, KD, the KD news finally breaks, and Kevin Durant is now a member of the Houston Rockets. Houston and the Phoenix Suns making a trade. KD going to H-Town, and in return, the Phoenix Suns getting Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the first-round pick in this year's draft, the number 10 pick, and 5 second-round picks. What'd you think of the deal, man?
I think the deal is interesting. It's good for Houston. They needed to get somebody else. Their problem was offense. You saw it, late game situation, struggle to score. They needed a guy whose ball they could put their hands in. KD can do that. He still was very efficient last year. I think KD can still impact winning. I think the concern with KD is health, like we just talked about.
Yeah.
And how are the Rockets going to manage his health? KD's not a guy I think you need to even try to play 65 games next year. If you can keep him between 55 and 60, and he's healthy for you and fresh going into the playoffs, you start sometimes to play every other day. I think that's ideally what you want. I think KD is a guy, even at 37, who I have a little bit concerns about with the age, and he's going to want an extension. He's probably going to get that 2-year extension with the Rockets. I have concerns about that with his age. So it's a risk. Every trade is a risk. There's a risk on that with the Rockets. But I think they couldn't stay stagnant with the team they had, and he's malleable enough of a star to come in and work with them. Now, for the Suns, I was thinking about this yesterday when the trade broke, and I was like, it doesn't feel like enough, even though I also understand that KD is not going to – I never thought KD was going to get you this great haul because of where he is in his career. But the Suns are not trading from a position of strength at all whatsoever. Everyone knows they're trying to get out of the hell they are. Everyone knows they can't trade Bradley Beal.
That's right.
So, and everybody knows they're trying to recoup. Now, I think if you were the Suns, what you wanted, who have a first-year GM here, inexperienced GM, you would think, okay, the thing I need to do with KD is, can I get back some of the picks I lost? Houston controls a bunch of their picks, and Houston only gave up them back 1 first-round pick. I'm talking about this year. They gave them all the second-round picks. Second-round picks, I don't want to say they're whatever because they matter in this era and what you can hit on with the second-round picks, but maybe you thought they could get another first, but Houston, I'm sure, held fight and was like fast and was like, no, They got Jalen Green. Somebody might say, okay, Jalen Green's a decent young player. The problem with Jalen Green for the Suns is positional redundancy. You're playing him now with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. Where does he fit there? I'm not quite sure. And I don't know if the Suns can move Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
Bradley Beal's been out here reportedly rejecting every trade possible. So what are they doing there? Dylan Brooks, maybe you're able to flip him somewhere where he wants to try to go and win. And you got Tari Eason. I forgot to mention Tari Eason.
Yes, big fan.
I'm a fan of Tari Eason. I like him as a role player. I think that's a nice young player to have there. In some way, are you overwhelmed by what the Suns got? No, but they weren't going to get that. Did they probably get as good as they could do? Maybe. But again, everybody knows they're not trading from a position of strength.
True.
And Matt Ishbia and company are kind of screwed. Now, me personally, I think the Suns really need to blow this whole thing up and move on from Devin Booker. But Devin Booker's 10 toes down there, doesn't want to move, so they're going to rock with that. They had to move on from KD. I think he'll help the Rockets. My concern with him is health. Will he be healthy at the end of the year? Will we see regression from him in his age 37 season? There are concerns there when you're going for an older star. But Houston, they've accelerated in their development. They were number 2 seed in the West, and they identified a need. He's going to help them.
Yes.
No doubt. He's going to help them. I think him with Sengun. I think it also tells you, last thing I'll say is I think it tells you that they really believe in Amen Thompson, because I got to think that the Suns asked for Amen Thompson. I mean, if I was trading KD, I would have started being like, hey, we want Amen Thompson. And the Rockets surely said no, which I would have said too, right? And they probably were trying to do right by KD. It's a place KD wanted to go. Players like to go play in H-Town.
Yeah.
All that stuff. But so I think it's a win for the Rockets. It's a okay trade for the Suns. I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think the Suns could have done much better. I don't know what the other offers were around the league. I know Miami was reportedly interested and supposedly didn't want to give up Jaime Jaquez, which I found interesting,
right.
There to hold the trade. But I guess it's fine for the Suns. I'd probably give them like a C+, B-.
Yeah.
On the trade. I think this is like a B+, A- for the Rockets with some risks, but they didn't give up too much. So let's say KD gets hurt next year or something like that. Not wishing that on him. Let's say that happens. You didn't give up that much. You didn't mortgage your future.
Right.
You did all right.
Yeah, I mean, from a Rockets standpoint, this was needed. They finished as his number 2 seed in the West. They had an outstanding regular season. Give a lot of credit to Udoka. Their young players emerged on the scene. The Amen Thompson experience is here. I think he's only going to continue to get better as he rounds out his offense. Alperen Sengun making the all-star team. Fred VanVleet being a leader for that team. But they needed more star power. We knew that. I think me and you both picked Golden State to beat them in the first round.
Yep.
And Golden State they were okay. They weren't all that great. But they needed a star, number one, for where this team is right now. You needed a star, a vet. You needed much-needed shooting help. They were one of the worst shooting teams in the NBA, both in the regular season and in the playoffs. They were not accurate. Low true shooting percentage, low effective field goal percentage, low in terms of three-point attempts, field goal attempts. Like, they needed a star, a high-volume, efficient scorer. And so, for me, Kevin Durant fits that bill. Yes, he's 37. Obviously, they're going to agree to the contract extension. To me, it's a worthwhile gamble for Houston based on what they gave up. They don't necessarily have a need for Jalen Green, and people. So I think the debate around Green is very interesting. Some people think he's like phenomenal, and other people think he's just average. I think he has a lot of time to round out his game, but for me right now, he just seems like a very raw and undisciplined scorer that needs to refine his game a bit. So let's see if that's with Phoenix or is that somewhere else. It's not too late for him. He's just getting started. But right now, he just seems like one of those talents that's just like, can he really be an all-star or a guy that you can build a team around? I don't think it's that clear. And I felt like the Rockets saw that and was like, look, we got Sengun, we got Amen Thompson. Those are our youth corner pieces. Jabari Smith took a step up last year. You got shooters like Reed Shepherd coming off the bench. I love Tari Eason. He's a phenomenal defensive wing. So they got a ton of young players where they can afford to take this gamble for KD. You give that up. Dylan Brooks was a salary filler. All right, they won't miss him. All right, yeah, he was a little gritty. He was a little tough, whatever. He could move on. And then you give up the 5 second-round picks. So for me, for Houston, this was a no-brainer thing to try when we just talked about the parity around the league. You know, so now you can make the case, hey, are they up there with Minnesota, depending on how they fill out their team, being a second apron team? You know, you'll have the Nuggets. You'll have the Clippers. Like, hey, with KD, I think they could be a very good team again. For the Suns, like you said, they really weren't operating from a position of strength. I think given the fact that you're trying to trade a 37-year-old Kevin Durant who limited his market based on who he was going to sign an extension with, I thought this was a good deal for the Suns. You know, they get the number 10 pick in the draft. They get some draft capital back. The Green fit is very tricky given he's wedged between Booker and Beal. So do they reroute him somewhere? Do they keep him and have a tryout per se, see how he fits? It'll be left to be seen. And then you get the 5 second-round picks that you can either draft later or try to flip those things. So, you know, for a team that's really trying to get out from under all the knots that they've tied for themselves over the last couple of years, I think this was a good deal for the Suns to get out. Now, what the hell are they doing with Devin Booker is beyond me because, in my opinion, keeping him makes 0 sense and making him the highest-paid player in the league. To me, that makes 0 sense. Ishbia and Booker's team should have came to the table in their offseason like, yo, listen, man, we're going nowhere fast. I need to save my reputation for being the worst owner in the sport. You got to go somewhere. Pack your bags. Beal, we going to figure out Beal. Who knows? Nobody wants him. Nobody wants to pay him. We going to figure out the Beal thing because we stuck with him for right now. But, you know, it's keeping the Booker thing, they're in quicksand still. So I just felt like the Durant thing, at least you can head it to the draft on Wednesday. You got the number 10 pick. Maybe that turns into something good.
See, that's the thing for me, CP. They kind of need to hit on that in some way. It doesn't have to be a star, but that's the thing for me. Because you couldn't get multiple bites, you kind of, if you're the Suns, you need to hit. You need to find a good player. You got to hit at number 10. Got to. This is a very important draft for them. You got to hit at number 10. You know, I was talking with a former scout last night who said he loves the top 8 in this draft. He still thinks you can find some value between 8 and 13. Where it gets a little bit trickier, but they got to find a guy at 10. I just think there's a lot of pressure on them to do it because they have limited assets.
Yeah.
To what you're saying. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that was it, man. So, you know, I thought it was an interesting trade. I did think as this thing was dragging out, it was clear, but kind of weird that he didn't want Minnesota. I thought, you know, the Ant-Man dynamic would have appealed to him, them being friends, and Minnesota being a good team, but maybe some people say he didn't want to pay the state tax, or maybe he wanted to play for Udoka, or maybe he just saw a better fit with the Rockets. But to me, again, this was a move the Rockets had to make. You couldn't just sit there and try to build with all these young players. You needed somebody to help turn the corner. And if KD's healthy by the time they hit the playoffs next year and all their guys are healthy, I think they're going to be a very tough out and a very interesting team, man. Very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's just all – it's all going to come down to keeping KD healthy. If they keep KD healthy, with his experience, I think he's going to be fine. I think his game ages well. You know, he's already shown some defensive regression. But like I said, he's still a player. If you look at the numbers, he still impacts winning at his age. And I just think he was in a very dysfunctional situation in Phoenix. I don't know what Phoenix is doing, but they got to hit on that. They got to hit on that pick. And if, you know, I read some stuff that they plan to play Green and Booker in the backcourt. I don't know about that. I don't know, because you and I have the very same evaluation of Jalen Green. I was high on Jalen Green coming out to draft. I just want to be very clear. But I have not been as impressed with his development, and I understand that all development isn't linear. So, like you said, there's a great possibility maybe he figures it out in Phoenix, maybe it's someplace else. I think it would be better someplace else where he'd have the opportunity to have the ball in his hands a little bit more than it appears he would have with his current Phoenix roster. But, I mean, it's time to – look, you could do worse than getting Jalen Green, the number 10 pick, Tari Eason, who I don't think is just a throwaway in this. And you might be able to flip – Dylan Brooks is going to be valuable. Somebody's going to want Dylan Brooks, man. Somebody might want him to see if he can help a team in
Yep.
terms of veteran leadership. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, no question about it, man. But, man, great show, man.
Yes, sir.
Felt like we capped off the season on a strong note, but this ain't over. We got draft, we got free agency, summer league, so, but hey, the 24-25 campaign is in the books, man. Great job all year covering New York sports, covering the NBA. You're doing the WNBA now. So, yeah, man, just a great job, and this was a lot of fun this year, man. We had a lot of fun this year, bro.
Yeah, man, a lot of fun. NBA offseason, I think it's going to be fun. It wouldn't shock me if the draft, there's a lot of activity in it on Wednesday night. So everybody buckle up. And then first day of free agency is Monday. So busy times.
Busy times, my guy. Great stuff as usual. You can catch him at DHenryTV on all social platforms, man. Salute to everybody in the chat once again. Hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel. And remember that this show is available on audio podcast format. So if you miss it on YouTube, you can catch it on all major podcast platforms. Great show, TM. Great show, everybody from Team KFTV that came over here. And, hey, man, we want to grow this platform. Like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. And, hey, I'll draft. We'll definitely have a draft show on Wednesday, man. So, Dex, are you doing anything for the draft?
I'm not.
Okay.
So if you need me to hop on, unless the Knicks do something, I gotta hop off and do reaction. But I'm down. I'm down to hop on. I'll come and have some fun with you guys.
Stay tuned, man. We'll have a draft show, a simulcast with Knicks Fan TV as well, man. So we'll get to it. See you guys on Wednesday. We out of here.